So here's how I put this shaft back in place. Basically, I kept the friction well and bearing with my left hand, and then with my right hand I kept the shaft and I did insert it this way. And there is a few things here. So first I put the gear without grease. This is wrong. I put the gear without grease. I put this washer. This pin did stay in place. I did not remove it at all. And the washer, to keep it in place, what you want to do, make sure everything is clean here. Put a piece of tape over it, just like that. So like a 2-inch piece of, I recommend masking tape, like painter's tape. It's pretty sticky. And just don't try not to put it over the gear, just over the top of washer, over the end of the shaft, and over the other end here. And this piece of tape, basically you will leave it there. It doesn't really matter. You may remove it once it's inside the hole. Through the hole, maybe you can tear it then before placing the outer carrier bearing, but it stays there. Notice the pin is there. At the other end there is nothing, no pin, no washer. Okay, so I just slide it like this, and then when it's past here, I just move it upwards. And then basically one of the things that you want to do, once it's past here, you want to put this washer in place at the other end. So you have another washer like this, put it at the other end once it's past there, and try to stick a piece of tape on it as well, so it stays in place, because you are going to rotate this shaft a little bit. Once you get the other washer there, then lift the shaft and engage the fork, the bearing into the fork. Now the bearing also has two washers. Try to show them perhaps. You can tell this one and the other one and the other one. Do the same with tape. Just put tape, no grease here, because grease will get on the friction well. You don't want that. Put tape and just keep this thing in place. And do the same for the second washer, and this washer will go behind this fork, and the other washer will go behind the other fork. So basically these two washers go inside these two forks to prevent the bearing from sliding left to right. So that's what's securing the bearing. So you are getting the bearing inside this fork, and then you will have this washer on the end, the other washer on the other end. Once the bearing is inside the fork, you try to insert the hex shaft onto the outer holes and try to position it like it's the final position. And at that moment, perhaps it's better at that moment, try to insert the left pin, the one that's in here. I'm not sure if it's the best moment. Maybe you want to secure the ends with the carrier bearing, the outer carrier bearing, but that's about the moment to insert the left pin. And the left pin actually I did remove and did insert it. Try to give you an idea. So it's this one. Basically I used the pliers, and let's imagine it's still on the shaft. I grab the pliers, open wide the jaws. You may want to put in the second position of the jaws if you have one, to open it wide, because you need a pliers. I'm not sure, adjustable pliers or something like this, but it has to open pretty wide. And you put one jaw here on the shaft, and with the other jaw you press on the straight end which goes through the shaft. You don't see it clearly, but there is a hole in the shaft, and this straight piece of the pin goes into that hole. So you just press on top of this piece to push it out, because it's really strong, very stiff. Cannot do it by hand. And then to put it back in place is the reverse. You just press one jaw on the shaft, and then you press at the end of the pin to slide it inside. And that's how you engage this pin. Also for the left pin, okay, for the left pin, I'm not sure if I did mention this, but this is the position for the fork at the highest speed of the snowblower. Just move the shifter to the higher speed, it will stay like this. This is what I used to remove and put it back all this assembly with the shaft. So for the left pin here, if you don't have enough space, you may want to move the fork just, I guess, the lower speed, and swing the fork to the right side, and you may get more space here to get your pliers on the shaft. You may also tap on the pin if you need, so maybe, I'm not sure if a small hammer will fit in there, tap on it to get it engaged. You can also rotate the shaft, right, to expose the side of the pin that you want to tap on. And this is pretty much it. Now, when you put things back in place, my advice is, look at my fingers, do not, when you put them back in place, not when you remove it, but even when you remove them, watch your fingers. This surface here, the flywheel, this rubber well will run around on this flywheel, or whatever disc you call it. It's going to run over its surface, so there should be zero grease here. There should be zero grease in this channel for the belt. There should be zero grease on the rubber and basically on both sides of this friction well. So when you put things back in place, don't put grease on the shaft as yet. Put grease here only when the shaft is completely back in place, except there is one exception. You notice this gear here is sliding on this spline, so when the shaft is out, I should show you this. When the shaft is out, slide this gear off the shaft, just smear that spline around with grease, because you don't want this gear to get seized, but also it may move a little bit on it. So just smear that spline, put the gear back, but gear has to be clean. Clean it, because you are going to touch it and then you get grease over the new friction disc or over the flywheel, and you do not want that thing. So when you put this thing back in place, this has to be crystal clear. And I use this propyl alcohol you get in from drugstore. You try to get a 95%, 99% one alcohol and just clean everything. So when you put this thing back in place, it's clean. Once the shaft is properly secured at both ends, then and only then I'm going to put grease on this gear, not on this video. This video is not the right way, I guess. So only then I will put grease here, not too much, just kind of, not just, this is more than smear, a little bit of thickness, because it has to spread on the big gear here. But just be careful, not too much, because this one rotates pretty fast and it will throw grease on the friction disc. So just get the idea, right? Try not to put too much, and use a thick grease which doesn't leak easily. And when the shaft is properly secured with the end carrier bearings, the outer ones, then you grab your finger, but really careful not to touch the friction well. Then grab your finger and smear a coat, just a coat, no dab, just a coat on all 6 surfaces, right? You need to pass your finger all around, on the right side, then on the left side, which you don't see clearly here, and also move the fork, move the friction disc towards the right to expose all the left side. So all the shaft has to be greased, but just the film of grease. That's the important part here. And finally, if you don't mind my advice, watch your fingers. You can tell from this video, and this happens all very, very often. Watch your fingers. We get grease on fingers, and also we handle parts, but also we handle the bolts. And if you touch your thread, the threads on the bolts, any bolts for the carrier bearing here, for instance, or anything, belly pan, so if you touch them with grease on the threads, what we'll do is, when you are going to put the bolt back in place, it has grease on the threads. Grease is a lubricant, and basically, you know something, when you tighten a bolt or a nut, the torque that you feel, it's mostly from the pressure on the threads, the friction and the pressure on the threads, not just the head banging against the surface. The thread, that's where the most torque is. So if you have grease on threads, you are going to apply the normal torque that you think. Actually, on the threads, that torque will be increased by a factor of 2, 3 or more. It's exponential, and basically what it does, you can stretch or even shear the bolt. So you apply the same torque you think it's normal, but on the metal itself is going to be 2 or 3 as much, because of the friction between the threads is greatly reduced by the presence of grease or oil. That's why you want to pay attention, clean your bolts with isopropyl alcohol or whatever you have at hand. And this is the carrier bearing, and just pay attention, generally speaking, on everything you work. We always have these greasy hands, and that's not the best thing. And this also, don't forget to clean your hands, right? Don't put them on around the home, or when you go back inside the home. We don't want grease when you change. Just sharing this with you, a side note: when you change your car engine oil, watch your hands, don't smear inside your car, inside your tools and so on, inside your home, because that oil is it's carcinogenic basically. You don't want your family to just be
inside your
exposed.
impeller.
So these are the bearings on the washer on this on the trunnion bearing, that's the name, and I think it just sits in there, but if you
These
put a little
washers,
bit of
these are
tape, it's
two
going to
more
keep it
things than
much
in
easier in
drop.
place, so it doesn't fall when you try to install. Final word: make a check before closing the belly pan. Check these two bearings are properly in place. Maybe use a flashlight. Check the two bearing, the washers. Sorry, my brain. Check these two washers are properly in place, and check the two washers on this hex shaft. The end washers are properly in place, so they didn't fail when you install them. Just double check, and don't tighten too hard those small bolts that keep the outer carrier bearings. Don't force them too much, because they are not the strongest bolts. I already did remove the bearing here, you don't see it. Oh, this is the torque, that's good. 10 feet-pounds. Okay, thanks for watching. Watch my other videos, and anything in the comment section, ask questions if you need.